Call the regular meeting of the Charter Revision Committee to session. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So our first agenda item is reviewing the minutes from last meeting. Ms. Craig, did you provide us with copies?
Yes, didn't I? You know what, I might not have, guys, I'm sorry, I was passing all of those out.
Anything else?
Here, so sorry.
Pass it down.
I'll just do this one real quick.
I have them like printing.
You do have them?
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, I killed a couple trees
Yeah.
with this.
Mhm.
All right, there we go.
Yeah, thank you. Take a look and make sure everything is reflected appropriately.
I have a question on the first page where it's Grant, Quaker Drive, commissions need to meet where their respective buildings are.
Oh, commission needs, okay, so yeah, I think what she means, yeah, is the
Need to meet
making
their
sure
respective
the police
buildings.
commission can meet in the PD and the
Right, yeah,
library
should
can
be
meet in the
required to meet
library.
here.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just that, there was.
It was in general.
She gave different.
Yeah.
And, yeah, P and Z can do the field, yeah. All right. Any revisions necessary for the agenda? Or the minutes, I'm sorry, from the last meeting? All right, hearing none, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from last meeting.
So moved.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Correspondence, do we have any
No.
correspondence? Public input. Floor is yours, fine citizens of Bethel.
Billy Michael, 27.5 Fleetwood Avenue. I'm so glad that I don't throw anything away. Because last time I was here, I was talking about what we did in '86. This paper in my cellar was right next to a 1937 paper that said Seabiscuit wins. So if anybody wants any information on Seabiscuit. But here it is. This was the first budget season that the Bethel Action Committee was formed in 1986. This is the first budget that was defeated by our taxpayer group, and this was probably the last budget in Bethel that subsequently passed by a voice vote. From '87 on, they were all decided through multiple referenda. But this is what I remember, what you need to know, because it's hard, the institutional memory of why we are where we are. Michael Clark was the son of Frank Clark. He was a member of the Board of Finance. Michael Clark said, he's on the Board of Finance, how will the Board of Finance interpret a budget defeat? Judging from the comments here tonight, this is the town meeting, maybe people want to add money. I wouldn't be going out, then he was, the respondent, Bob Brush said, I wouldn't be going out getting signatures for a referendum to add money to the budget. But this is exactly what happened. Here's the chairman of the Board of Finance saying, what does it mean if the budget fails? And we had a terrible budget, the ballot. We did have an advisory question put on, and it was so sloppy. I should have brought a copy of it, but I didn't have time to look it up. But this is exactly why we have non-binding advisory questions. It was because the Board of Finance didn't know how to interpret a rejection. So that's one point I just want to reiterate on my stand from last month. Secondly, seeing this last budget process where the budget's rejected and the Board of Finance finds, or the administration finds $285,000 in money to offset the subsequent proposed budget. You know, when this budget went down in 1986, Cliff Hurgin found $200,000 in telephone line access grant. And it's funny, here I am over 30 years later, and every time a budget goes down, money comes out of somewhere. And I know Phil Gallagher is a proponent of going back to the former date of a May 1st of May town meeting. I know that you did some homework and they don't really know the numbers. The argument that we need more numbers, they don't know numbers until October sometimes. So that argument sort of fails. But I'll tell you one thing that I could not categorize this with real data, but I think I'm going to sit down and do it. I think the Board of Finance now, with the new timetable, has less time on the budget than it did in years past. And I think it's the compression of the budget process to get that April town meeting date, and the fact that you're in all of those snow days. Board of Finance you lost a lot of snow days. And I think it puts an inordinate pressure on the Board of Finance to rush through. I don't have the hours spent at meetings, but I'll look that up. I'll go through that and see if in fact, the Board of Finance has less time on the budget. And what happens, if that is true, and I think it is true, it concentrates more power on the Board of Selectmen and the town comptroller. And I like to see power diffused. I love the fact that the Board of Finance has power in this budget process instead of concentrating in the Board of Selectmen, which is why I'm against a 5-man Board of Selectmen or 5-woman. I'm against the 5-woman Board of Selectmen, and I'm against 4-year terms for them because it concentrates too much power. That said, I know you've got a big agenda. I don't want to take too much time. Questions? I think we're all set. Oh, one other thing. You know, this pushback against the town meeting. Back in the 1988, 89, there were people who were literally on the commission saying, we think that the town has outgrown the town meeting form of government, but the town's not ready for it. So there's always been people in this town that think the town somehow would be better with less citizen input. And I disagree with that with my whole heart and soul. I love the fact that the people, and in fact, the town meeting, when I went through that litany of things, we've got the automatic referendum because town meeting form of government. We have, we own the municipal water supply because town meeting form of government. And there's a couple of other things. But in this last charter revision, something was put in there about the sale of, or demolition of town-owned buildings. Because if it weren't for the town meeting, the people gathered at town meeting getting petitions and signatures, the demolition.
Have a rotting building across the street from us?
Yes, because that would have been.
That'd be awesome.
But that would have been decided by the town attorney's legal opinion. And what we did by changing that was make sure that a precedent set by a town lawyer did not allow for getting rid of, for the disposal of town-owned property. But that whole debate would never have happened had it not been for town meeting form of government. We had meetings, we did the petition, we went out and got, I think 600 signatures. These were real grassroots, power to the people kinds of things, which the town meeting form of government reflects more than any other form. All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. You could be out boating, fishing.
Kayaking. Right. Dave.
Good evening. We talk about government.
Excuse me, can I get your name and address?
David Galan, Senior, 9 Elizabeth Street, Bethel, Connecticut. We talk about people, and it's we the people. That's everybody in this room, plus everybody on the outside. We're all part of government. And one thing I hear is possibility of losing the form of town meeting. And I think it's wrong to do that. And I think the problem is not the town meeting. I believe the problem is Robert Rules of Order. Now, why I say that, back in, I believe 1972, I attended a town meeting, and the second person that got to speak moved the meeting. So all those people that gave up time, their family and work, or whatever they had to do, went to that meeting for nothing. They wanted to speak, and now the freedom of speech was taken away from them. Nobody should have the right to take away the freedom of speech of anyone in this town, yours or mine. Now, there was a meeting recently, at a town meeting, where the first person got up and made a motion to move the question. Now, it doesn't matter the difference of 2 people in the room or 50 people in the room. To me, that was the wrong thing to do, because anybody that attended that meeting, again, lost the freedom of speech. Today is Normandy Day, right? How many people died for us so we can speak? How many? Now, to give up that meeting and give up the freedom of speech, we can't do that. Not in my opinion.
What's your alternative to Robert's Rules of Order then?
The alternative to Robert Rules of Order is have at least 7 people, 6 people, 8 people, I'll say 7. 7 people get up and stand in line, whether they're for it or against it, and make their questions known to the hierarchy, okay, to the Board of Selectmen. That way, you're guaranteed, the town is guaranteed at least not everybody in that room attended a meeting to get sent away and go home. So if at least a certain amount of people were to speak, and after those people spoke, if somebody wanted to move the question then, well, at least somebody had a chance to speak their mind. And if it was only 7 people, out of those 7 people, maybe something very important was brought out to this town at the meeting. But to have the meeting adjourned on the first question, the power's in your hands, you have to stop that. I don't think there's anybody else that can stop that. And to have people running for 4-year term for first selectman, I believe is wrong. And why do I believe that? It's too much power for one person to have for such a long time. You need new thoughts sitting in that selectman chair. 12 years, no. If it's going to be four-man selectman board, 12 years is too long to be serving. And I know I'm losing my thoughts. So I think it's in your hands, and hope if I said something that made sense tonight, we'll find out in the future. Thank you.
Cynthia McCorkindale, 19 Elgin Avenue. So I had a couple of points, but I just want to say to Mr. Blonde's point that I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that Robert's Rules, the adoption of Robert's Rules of Order for meeting protocol is not cast in stone. It's something that sort of we agree to use that. It's sort of a format that is just generally accepted. So to his point, there could be any sort of modification made at any time. It's done all the time. At that, what he's talking about is when the majority are bored and don't want to hear the other opinion because they are in the majority, that they want to shut it down. Not because it's going to change anything, but because they're just bored or fed up, or they think that it's just a bunch of characters talking. But that's not, so it's really more of a question of manners than procedure. And when the moderator said, would you consider rescinding your motion? No, absolutely not. refuse to. So I think that it's just a general, maybe lack of appreciation for what the town meeting is all about. So that said, to Billy's point about the Board of Finance, I am on the Board of Finance. I can tell you honestly that there was so much pressure about the timeline. And in fact, when we were making some decisions that were really important decisions, we didn't have time to either table it and go back to it. And in fact, when it was suggested, the first selectman said, we have a schedule to stick to, we have a deadline. Well, that's true. If we had actually tried to have another meeting, we would not have met the deadline for notification of or the warning of the public hearings and the town meetings, because it was all squished up and compressed. So that's I think we should consider putting it back the way it was. I know that maybe it's a pain for the tax collector, I don't know, but it just seems more important for the Board of Finance to have the freedom of movement and thought to consider these budget things. So that's what I have about that. But for me,
May I ask,
Oh, sorry.
what's your meeting schedule on that lead up?
our meeting schedule?
Yeah, how often do you meet?
Yeah, it's like we do 1 week, we do 3 nights or 2 nights, whatever it takes. But I mean, there was 1 week where we were just under the gun as far as and I remember when it was, because I remember Matt saying something, and it was like, I just went, oh no, we have to do this now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all. I mean, yeah, Dion knows the schedule, so it might be something to look at. So what I really want to do, I feel, this is like a visceral feeling I have, that I have to come here and defend the town meeting form of government, not necessarily because it's so great and appropriate and applicable, but it's the only thing that remains of the original intention of the founding fathers in terms of the voice of the people. It's a New England thing. This is where it all began, and it's you can think it's just for farmers or for people who just have to come to the Grange to talk about stuff, but it's more than that. And for example, to David's point, we come to the town meeting, people who are in the minority, like myself, Billy, usually, 3 hours a year you have to listen to us. So, get over it. That's all it is. It's not going to change the course of human events. It's just a few hours. And then the people get to decide, just like now. The people will decide if they want to support the proposals you're going to make. And that's the way it should be. And you'll make any decision you want because you're a committee, and it'll go the way it goes when people vote in a committee. But at the end of the day, you will get the citizen input. And my fear is that the farther we go away from that sort of, I call it like an intimacy of government, the farther we go away from that, then it just becomes all one thing, like one just, washed, whitewashed, and there's no individualism anymore, there's no opinion anymore. It's just, and I just wanted to share a couple of these. I have a couple of quotes that I just want to share because I was just taken aback because it's so clear. And it's Thomas Jefferson. So one of them is, the spirit of resistance to government is so valuable on certain occasions that I wish it to always be kept alive. And the town meeting form of government allows us to resist, whether it's the government or the majority or something that needs to shed light on it. And it helps, to me, I believe it helps transparency. Now the other thing is short. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance. The only way that people who are looking after taxpayers, the only way and we are vigilant, the only thing we can be vigilant if there's a platform for us to express how we feel. It's not going to be on Facebook. It's not going to be, Billy can't even turn on his computer. It's not going to be a YouTube channel, right? So, it's just trying to make sure that everyone can be heard. And there's just one more thing that, it may be so that you think, you may come to the decision that you think this is the best thing for Bethel. It may seem like it's the best thing for Bethel just because of the way things are going. But my concern, and I will come here every month to express it, is the loss of that individual intimacy of communication, and whether people are booing or shouting or hissing or laughing, you know, it doesn't matter. It's just the expression. You will lose that. We won't have it. It'll be a council. The thing that Matt, when you did his PowerPoint, talked about that you can modify the town meeting form of government so that, like, representatives. So, and then he said that there would be a manager. Now, the same people who would support that are the same people who want to get rid of the electoral college. So that doesn't make, well, you know what I'm saying, well, I'm saying a lot of people,
It's a stretch, but.
I don't know if that is a stretch, because you're still electing the people to represent you. I mean, in a mass, you know, it's not the individuals, you're electing representatives, not just a selectman, not just that, but a whole group of people in electoral college. They are elected to represent you, the voters, as a group, to vote in
Wouldn't
the
that be more
primaries.
similar to a legislative council then?
I beg your pardon?
The electoral college is more similar to a legislative
Right,
council than it
that
is
is true, that
the
is
town
true.
hall form of government.
There were
Otherwise,
some
we'd all go to DC.
But there
and
were some
elect the president.
modifications, I don't know if you recall, that were put in the PowerPoint that were, you know, different modifications that can be done to the town meeting form of government.
Having a professional run the town.
A manager, but also a group of representatives. You know what I'm saying? Whether it was, I believe it
But
was a
so do
modification.
you feel that the Board of Education doesn't operate under the town hall form of government?
I wouldn't go that far, but I would say that another concern of mine, and I don't know how this would ever be able to be ameliorated, is it's very difficult for me to see the Board of Education and the town of Bethel as under the same umbrella. It seems like another entity in and of itself, and it's been a concern for a long time for me, but it seems to be even, and it's not, I don't think it's intentional, like a lot of it has to do with state funds, mandates, all this stuff. Believe me, I understand it, that part of it, and it's just, I think it's just very damaging, and I just don't think it promotes the unity of a town.
What's damaging?
The fact that there's so much pressure on the Board of Ed with mandates and the money and this and that they don't have the same situation that we have. We don't have all those in the town. We don't have all those, you know, mandates or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying is it seems that the town's people, the ones I interact with anyway, it's really a different part. It's not part of the Board of Ed world, which is like the school world. They're two separate worlds, whether you think so or not. Maybe because most of the people are in the school world, people may not see it, but it really is. There are people who don't feel part of it in anything. And I'll just say one more thing. The town meeting form of government, where I think it's not serving us, is because there's too much, what's the word? It's too incumbent on the citizens to trawl around for information and try to figure out what's going on. I think there has to be more communication to the people. It's getting better, it's absolutely getting better, but just so that everyone can know, and then everyone, if they feel that they do have a voice and they feel like they're not gonna get shut down in a meeting, maybe more people will come out. Because that is a lot of people who say the reason is they know they're either gonna get booed or they're going to get shut down. Why would they wanna come out? I'm sorry, are you puzzled? You're just sort of looking
Me?
puzzled. Yeah.
I'm listening to you.
Okay, well, that's great. There's a lot of that going on. But the point is, I'm supporting the town meeting form of government simply because I don't think it's time to shift yet. This is New England. It is different from the rest of the country. I know that towns are adopting other things. I would venture to say that it has more to do with money and convenience and speediness than it does for the people. And that's all I got. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I have a question.
Okay,
on
sure.
the attorney meeting. I was actually at that meeting, and I walked away disgusted, saying I'm never coming back. The people were so rude,
and I would actually say that I think the moderator, who I like very much, Alice, needs to stand up there at the start and say, you've got to stop this heckling and screaming. And people behind me were outrageous. I mean, there was a whole line of them screaming, and they were heckling everybody who stood up. And I was really embarrassed that their manners were that bad. So my question, I guess, is this to Attorney Vitti. All right, there is Robert Rules of Order. There is a value to Robert Rules of Order. I've been in meetings where it does kind of control the ebb and flow of discussion and what goes on, and make sure that you cross T's, dot I's. But is there a way to modify them to meet the needs of these meetings? In other words, I agree. I guess it's Mr. Glenn.
Glenn.
I agree with him that they called the vote way too soon. People were waiting to talk, at least one individual. I had planned on getting up to talk, and they called it, and that was it. And the loud screaming people behind me overrode everybody who wanted to speak. So I think that, and one thing I didn't know, and had I known I would have done it, you can ask for a call for a show of hands. They didn't have that. So we had a screaming group behind us, which we knew we couldn't out-scream probably. But I think that either we need a little education in what can and cannot be done, but I also think the moderator needs to give a little more information in the get-go about behavior in the meetings, showing respect for one another, and is talking while other people are talking and making fun of them. It's just unacceptable. So I don't know how you can do that. I mean, is there I know there's Robert Rules of Order. I don't know of anything else, but is there a way to?
Quite honestly, I don't think it's really a charter issue.
No, it's
No,
not
it's
something
not.
we could.
It's an
It is
individual,
not.
it's an
Except for-
individual meeting issue.
And anything we change just sets up manipulation. It's all games and shit. You know,
So
we're in
But
a culture of divisive politics and
Doesn't it actually
manipulation.
mention in the charter that it's adopted, it's generally adopted that the Robert's Rules of Order are applied to meetings? I believe that is in the charter.
Nick, can we, I was at the same meeting, and when I first got in, I was surprised it was in the GP room, because I expected it to be packed. And then, when the question was called, I think the moderator did a good job and tried to pull it back.
Yes.
And
Yes,
couldn't. And I agree, I don't think that question should be called while people still have comments to say, but it could last forever then. Is there a way to, and I definitely don't agree with the outburst that followed. It was very unprofessional of certain people in that room. But I mean, I've been in other meetings, throughout the thing that they've been called right away. I was at that meeting where the first person got up, and afterwards it came to my thought is, of course people aren't coming, because they come and they leave again. They don't get the information. So that hurts us. Is there a way that we could specify that if someone's in line, the question cannot be called? Because that's what the moderator tried. The moderator tried to do that guidance where if someone was in line, they normally do not call the question, and tried to get the person to revoke, and they would not. Is there a way to adjust that?
I think we're talking about certain respectfulness.
No, absolutely.
Which is I don't see how we can mandate something like that in the charter.
Okay.
Robert's rules is generally what I'm accustomed to for any form of meeting
Okay.
governance. You certainly can modify Robert's rules, but it's going to take a vote of the meeting at the outset of the meeting. For instance, at state park, on party,
Okay.
we abide by Robert's rules and the state party rules.
Okay.
And we vote on that at the outset. If someone has a change to that or wants to alter it in some way, it's a vote at the outset of the meeting. It's not it's an opinion. It would be troublesome for me
So
to put
you can't do
something
it
in
through
the
a charter?
Well, I mean, I think the moderator could say to suspend pass a motion to suspend. It has to be 75%
Certainly
hand
that
raising
the
vote.
moderator can dictate that.
Yeah.
I believe the moderator can adjust without a vote, like there's a time limit if they wanna say
Well,
3 minutes.
But to Nick's point, the rules have to be laid out in advance. You
Right,
can't
that's what I
change
mean, yeah.
rules. Yeah.
And while I agree that certain rules should be changed, if it's not privy to the charter's whole discussion for
I
another
know.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing is, at the meetings, you talk about lines, there is nobody that says form a line. One person will get up in front of the microphone,
Mhm.
and then down the aisle, another person will come down and mosey down to speak, but there is no such thing as a line.
Okay.
So one thing you can think about is starting the meeting with people with a line. Right now, there is no line.
Yeah.
And another thing that was mentioned about the Board of Education is part of town government. Well, if you go to the meetings, we're told that it is a business now.
It's a what?
It's a business,
Who tells you that?
Board of Education.
When were you told that?
I was told that at former meetings, town meetings, and you can look that up in the minutes.
By who?
I don't know the person's name, but somebody that was in charge, the Yatsky or?
Yansky, the business
Yes.
operations manager?
I think it's called the business manager.
The business manager.
She did it.
We were told that it is education,
Yeah,
it is
first
a
follow
form of
the
business. And you know businesses nowadays do fail. So, education has changed. It is now a business, and you can ask them if it has ever been mentioned.
Okay. Would anybody else like to contribute? All right. Now we'll close the public input session. Review of the proposed charter revisions by members of the committee. So let's take a look with everybody. We have Nick's communication from earlier today, I think, right? Okay, yeah,
So what I did was basically just, from my notes last time,
Mhm.
from the commission's go-ahead on which, I took Dion's list, which comprised everything we've been talking about, all the issues, and you guys said, yes, we want to go with certain things, and no to others, and hold for further discussion on others. So I took the ones that were, let's go ahead, and they were mostly, I think, easier issues, and put some language to it in the body of the charter. I don't know if it shows up in actual red line, but.
No, it's that black line.
But you can see it's the underlined portions or the stricken portions in the body of the charter that's been printed out. And then it's summarized in the list that was in my email. The one thing I will mention was this newspaper publication issue, which we've talked about a lot. I didn't necessarily get the go-ahead last time to change that, because what was on the table was changed from newspaper to publication. And we
Right.
kind of went through that. If we made that change, it would kind of be a dereliction of the state statutes as they're written at this time. But we did want some anticipatory change that if things do change, we're not behind the gun for another 5 years at the convening of another subsequent charter revision meeting or charter revision commission. So maybe some flexibility. So I took a shot at that by just kind of putting a catch-all phrase to all the sections where newspaper publication was required in the charter, by instead saying place in a newspaper having general circulation in the town, or another medium, and this language can be changed if you think anything else is proper, or another medium consistent with the requirements of the Connecticut General Statutes. So just by adding that catch-all, I think it gives us flexibility. If then town council rules or orders that penny saver is permissible under state statute, we can do it. If it's online advertising consistent with state statute, we can do it. Just gives a little flexibility. That's the only one, I would bring that up because you guys did not give me the go-ahead. I
Mhm.
just had some
Yeah.
further thought on that.
I know you had some reservations, Melanie, is
I
that
did,
you're
and
more
that's
comfortable?
exactly what I had in mind.
Okay.
Something just to allow that flexibility if the law changed.
Okay. Anybody else have any conversation, opinions on that adjustment?
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think
think
it's just the
it's
flexibility we're seeking. All right.
And then I could, the other changes are, if you read through them, if you haven't had a chance, read through them and we can talk about them at a subsequent meeting, but they're pretty self-explanatory, I think. Obviously, any of the language can be wordsmiths, that's your guys' job. I present some draft changes, but you guys come up with the final language.
Nick, there was something, and I apologize, I'm gonna have the sheet in front of me. There was something to include drainage in the definition of the duties. I don't think drainage was in.
So yes,
When you made
that's a good question. Let me get out my notes.
It was for one of the departments.
It was for
The public
the
works possibly?
director.
Works, we
Yep.
added roads, vehicles.
Revise the description of the position of the Director of Public Utilities. Well, I see a description of the Director of Public Works in the chart, but I didn't see the description for the position of Director of Public Utilities. There's a Public Utilities Commission, unless I was missing something. So I didn't know where to go with that change. So this is under, I'm looking at Dion's handout, where we went through all the potential changes. And under C711, there were two that the commission wanted to go ahead and revise.
Yeah, that was a suggestion from Ms. Cavagna, right, to
Yes.
add,
Now, one was quite simply add additional members to the PUC. And that was a simple change, just numeric
Okay.
revision. The second, under number 2 for C711 was revise the description of the position of Director of Public Utilities. Well, quite honestly, I don't see that position being in the chart. There is a Director of Public Works.
okay.
And we have a director of public utilities now, Tom Villa.
We do, and I did not go and check the code.
Yeah,
Okay.
Because
I
it might
think
be,
that's
it might
what
be
it
in the
is.
Code of Ordinances,
I think that's what it was referring to.
which is Board of Selectmen come up with the code, and people can petition to change the Code of Ordinances, but it's not, I don't believe it's in the charter itself.
Is there some research I can do for you to try to?
Yeah, I
figure out?
didn't dive into the code. I
Okay.
didn't dive into the Code of Ordinances.
So should we probably add that
So,
that position to the charter, the Director of Public Utilities?
We could.
Parallel to other director roles
okay.
in terms of responsibility and obligation to the town? I think the more clarity and direction we can give to any role is important.
And I did have one other further question, which was, we were talking about, and I think this stemmed from the Registrar of Voters suggestion to kind of give them more flexibility to publish the ballots. So if you see under C10-2E and C6-3A in Dion's, the handout that Dion had passed out, I wasn't clear on
What was that, 10-1?
so our last meeting came with a packet,
Yeah.
which
Right.
summarized,
In the meeting
Oh,
minutes.
that one, okay, got it.
and towards the second to last page of the write-up that Dion had with all the proposed changes. I know that the commission wanted to do something to C10-2E and C6-3A, but from my notes, I was unclear on what we wanted to do. And from this write-up, I was unclear. So I wanted to bring that up and get some direction from you guys.
So go to the minutes that I passed out. I attached, basically what I did was I went through and I just copied and pasted all of the requests and all of the discussion that we've had. And that's what he's referring to. attached to
I
that?
think, yeah, the beginning of it.
That I have. Yeah, that's it. Okay. So what are we looking at now, which section? Nick, will you repeat what section you're talking about?
So
C10.
C10 2E and C6 3A.
Oh, okay.
Public hearing timeline.
What's
Mhm.
the gender town budget?
I think it's just a,
Something else, like what,
I
should
think
we
it's
be there
just
at all?
a Scrivener's
Just
error.
shouldn't be there at all.
I think,
Oh.
I think it's general.
I can
General
tell you
town
what
meeting?
that is. Right now, it just says 7 days.
See
And
that?
what we were requesting is that it say 7 days, or I'm sorry, not less than 7 days or more than 14 days. So just to add the, give that little time.
Because I think because of the springtime, yeah,
Yeah.
there's holidays that get
Trying
thrown
to,
in.
yeah,
and-
So
Trying
then
to
that's
fit it
just
in
in
with
the date.
C6 3A is the one change we want to do. Shall be held on one of the first 7 days of April. No. We want to go. Okay. Board of Finance shall hold
I think they're
one more
separate.
public hearings on the general town budget report.
That was just some information I had thrown in there, just to give more description on why we would want to change. Because what we do is within the first 15 days of January, the Board of Selectmen meet, and they set the date for the town meeting, which always has to be within the first 7 days. So then, with that information going to setting the annual town meeting, I was just requesting, instead of it just saying within the first 7 days, it could be not less than 7, not more than 14.
Does it say not less than
So
7?
are we
or
talking
not less
about
than
the public hearing
Not more than
being held
14.
or the town budget meeting?
General town meeting, I think is what you want to say here. It says gender town meeting, town budget. Report not less than 7 days or more than 14 days before the
It
annual
relates to the
town
public
meeting.
hearing. the dates
So I
of the
think you're
public hearing.
talking
I think so
about the
And
budget.
walking those
Okay.
up on what
It's
will
the
be
time
town
between the
budget
public
meeting.
hearing and the annual town meeting.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
The actual
I
language.
don't think that you're looking for a change to C 6-3.
No,
That was
that was
informational.
just
That was
informational.
informational there.
There's,
Yeah.
there's no
FYI,
change
yeah.
there. It's just
Because
requesting.
of C6-3A and what that requires in terms of setting the town
It's-
meeting, what's the period of time that the public hearing has to be held prior to that?
Okay.
It's just giving more flexibility than what.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's just giving us a little bit more flexibility.
And what are we doing with, the suggestion that was made early on by Paul Skarski about having shovel-ready projects? Is that, Nick, did you get that in the language somewhere, or?
No, that we didn't
We got
discuss.
it.
Well, these are the ones that we all agreed upon.
Yeah, this is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that was
All the
gonna
other
take a
things
lot
got
more
tabled for more discussion.
Okay,
thorough
got it.
research and debate. I mean, because not all construction projects are structured the same.
Right,
So we wanted to look in how that would impact on particularly the Board of Ed side. And it's a different process when you're
Right.
getting state funding versus when we're bonding it ourselves and
Mhm.
financing it ourselves. So we wanted to make sure we didn't put anything in our charter that prohibits us from accessing state funding
Mhm.
for projects.
Yeah, there's still a bunch of work. This was just preliminary to start
Okay,
the
I
drafting
get it,
process
yeah.
We all agreed
on
upon it.
stuff.
Yeah,
that
I think it
everybody
was
agreed.
the low-hanging fruit, can we tighten it up so we can get into the mud?
And the other thing that I should mention, when we were discussing, myself researching other towns, and I'm not gonna go through 169 different charters, but I went through a sampling of our surrounding towns on removals when, for instance, the issue was when someone moves out of town, but really is not communicating the fact that they moved out of town. Who knows if they moved out of town? Are they elector or are they not an elector? Who makes the call for removal? So we wanted to see what other towns because our charter is silent to this issue, what other towns do. And quite frankly, most other towns' charters are silent to the issue and don't give a removal power. I did find Wilton's charter, and that's the attachment that came in the email, that Wilton, I like Wilton's charter. It's a good one for a lot of different language choices. But they have a provision in there where the Board of Selectmen can remove for cause. They can remove for attendance issues if you miss 3 unexcused absence, whether you're elected or appointed on a board or commission. The Board of Selectmen can remove. There still has to be a public hearing, a time for the respondent to address the Board of Selectmen. Yeah, I don't know necessarily, we talked about if the registrar should have the power, if the town clerk should have the power. I don't know if you want that power in the registrars of the town clerk.
Right.
Maybe there should be some more notice provisions, but this was just a sampling of the only charter I found that actually had some removal power to it.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's run into a lot of
Yeah.
boards.
That's
That's,
a problem.
Mr. Chairman, can I just interrupt for a minute? Is it possible to turn the air conditioning on in here?
It's
It's unbelievably hot.
Yeah. Let me open these doors and see if we can't get,
Is that the best that the air will do?
yeah, I'm not touching that.
so,
What?
Nick,
What's wrong with that?
Somebody else can play with it, I'm not touching it.
John?
If you open the window behind you, it does do
The
it.
kids are yelling behind us.
Well, you're gonna yell. They're yelling and that's that.
Yeah.
No one
I'll
knows. John, you
I'll
yell
go
at
out
those
and
kids.
quiet them down.
Chase those kids away, John.
Just shoo them away.
Nick,
That
I'm
would
sorry,
be
so
interesting.
is that something we can adopt, or is that
That'll
something
help.
you're asking if we should? Or
It
did.
was on the commission's list.
Yep, okay.
I think, I forget who brought up the issue.
Yep.
But it may have been brought up in public input.
I think that was on the list.
It came over from the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, was it part of the charge? It could be, it could be as part of the charge, because there's confusion as to, especially on the appointed boards. You know, is there a removal power, or are they appointed for perpetuity?
I know there was discussion last meeting on removal power for people who leave, move out of the town.
Yeah.
There
and I
wasn't
think that-
discussion on people who don't go to,
No,
So I would
just
like
point
to
out as
include that
was
part.
Interesting in the fact that Wilton does include that.
Yeah.
Just as a kind of a side note,
Yeah.
that wasn't brought up.
I would like to include that. I think I know the board I sit on, that's a concern. We have members on that board who have never come to the meeting, and there's nothing you can do.
Yeah, I think just from my knowledge of the town boards, that probably happens on more than one.
Oh, I'm sure.
It was definitely in the charge that we got.
Okay.
Good night, folks, and thank you for serving.
Good
Thank you
night.
for coming.
You take care.
I think that's something we certainly want to add some clarity to. Because I think it is a concern, particularly on the appointed side. It's a different level of accountability and kind of hovers under the radar. You don't have to put your name on a ballot and campaign, so it's easy to be overlooked. Any other questions for Attorney Vitti?
6-8, sorry. So like example of user fees would be something like water or sewer.
The
They could-
example is really water and sewer. If you
Right.
guys, the language I think was suggested by the selectmen, but I think that's the instance where it comes in Bethel.
Yep. Yep.
Any other questions for Attorney Vitti? Any other things he presented? I think our next piece is, continuing the discussion I think last time we were pretty thorough in terms of just gauging where we sat in particular items, what items we needed more information on. And I think, you know, we gotta start looking at the other components of our obligation with the charter, calling that second town meeting or a public hearing. And then just looking at our calendar and seeing how we want to approach that. With summer coming, do we want to meet both months, July, August? Keep going. When do we think a reasonable time to do the public hearing would be as well? Do we feel like we'd be burying it if we did it in the summer? Should we hold off the fall? Lots of things at play with an election year and such. So kind of try your minds and thoughts on that.
I think July would be pretty tough to get
Yeah.
too many people to come.
Yeah.
Did we not change the July meeting date?
I thought
We
we were
may
talking
have.
about town meeting.
Because it was like
Yes,
4th of
because
July.
it was
Right.
4th
Yeah,
of
we
July,
changed
so
that.
it's July 10th.
But I'm just saying, you mentioned a town, I thought you were talking about a town meeting.
Well, that, I think we're kind of at that point where it's hard for us to really push forward without broader input from the community in terms
Yeah.
of what their
Yeah.
sense is. I
No,
mean,
I
we
agree.
can ping pong our opinions off each other for the next couple months and then, you know, have a town meeting and,
And you guys are open to have as many public hearings as you want.
yeah.
There's one mandatory one after we have a draft report together. But if you feel like you need additional public input via a public hearing, we can certainly have another one.
So the public hearing doesn't have to be part of our regular meeting, right?
No, yeah,
No,
it's
it's gonna be
separate.
Separate meeting.
Yeah, in addition.
I would think we'd have to do it after school starts in the fall,
Yeah.
because people, I know I'm busy this summer, a lot of people have things going on.
Yeah, it's a
September.
different, it wouldn't be fulfilling our charge to kind of do it over the summer.
Mhm.
So that being said, with 2 meetings in the summer, looking at the workload we have, do you think we'll need both? Is there anything we want to debate a little more thoroughly? Yes.
Do you want to just see who, if people already have vacation plans, maybe just go to a rise of hands if you will be at the next two?
Yeah, so we'd be looking at
That way
July
we'll know if
10th
we even
and
have
August
quorum.
1st. Does anybody have established
I can't be here July 10th.
July 10th? Okay.
I think the 2 meetings that are scheduled for July and August, we should keep, and we should work on what we need to work on, and then set up for, you know, a public hearing like September 5th, whatever works.
Sure.
The second week of September, get through school, getting back in Labor Day done, and back into the school bus routine.
So when we go into the public hearing, would we like to kind of have a kind of skeleton of the agenda we want to move forward, which are, you know, the house cleaning ones,
And that's why I think
The
we need the
meeting,
next
yeah.
2
Yeah, we do
meetings
need
to
the
be able to
meetings to do
weed
that.
through that.
yeah. So these are
Because I
kind
can
of.
convince you all on certain ones, I need 2
Yeah.
more meetings to be able to do that.
But I mean,
But they
just
said you
adding,
will have
just
the
adding
September
clarity,
meeting.
so the public meetings are more efficient as well, where it's
Yeah.
not everybody coming to tell us that we need to turn over the permission to meet in their buildings. Like, we've got that, we understood it, there's no
Right.
controversy. These are the bigger issues we want public opinion on,
Right.
and let's focus on these 2 or 3 topics.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's a good idea. If you publish something out there, that might focus
Mhm.
everybody's attention.
Look at what
to it.
changes.
Get some more
Mhm.
positive input.
Concerns.
Okay. All right, so that sounds sound to me. And then even if we have to navigate some absences over July and August, it's not, you know,
We can work.
yeah, there's nothing super pressing.
But let's try for it.
Yep, okay. Any other thoughts, opinions on that before we move on to the final part of our agenda? Okay. So we have another bill from Kakash Touche and Santiago, right?
In the amount of what?
1,339.61, right?
13 what?
1,339.61. That's correct, right? Or is that the credit balance? Have we already paid that?
Can I see that bill next?
Yeah, there's a lot of negatives on there.
If there's a credit balance, then.
Yeah, I think we're good, right?
There may be.
Did we overpay?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, a
wow.
minus is a credit in my world.
That's what I'm like, I was like, that's a negative. Like,
Yes, there's a credit.
so we're good to go, all right.
Nick,
So we got
So
it
Nick
July
actually
and
owes us
August.
some work, yeah.
Nick, I have a question.
Sure.
Last time Sharon brought up the concerns from, I believe it was term senior citizens not being able to attach or go to the town meetings. And basically the general thought was nothing we could do for that through the charter.
Right, through the charter.
Through the charter.
No.
So the question I have, is it possible through the charter to mandate that all meetings get videotaped? Because it's quite easy now and to put it online so anyone can watch it anytime and get the information that they're seeing.
It is.
Okay.
You gotta make sure that the infrastructure is there.
I believe you have the infrastructure in place.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the storage capabilities, but,
Yeah.
okay.
We had talked too about exploring using the senior citizen van and
Yep.
things like that, because the elderly don't drive at night for the most part.
No,
Yeah.
but keep in mind that videotaping wouldn't produce participation.
No, I agree, but it's a great source
Knowledge.
of refreshing, and
Yeah.
if, you know, I'm thinking a lot of town meetings obviously start at 7 o'clock. Seniors may not wanna go out at 7 o'clock, but they may want the information.
Yeah.
A lot of seniors vote, and what scares me, if they're voting, they may be voting without the information that they need. So if you have, I mean, again, thinking, you know, new age mediums, it used to be, hey, channel 23, you could go watch it whatever time. New medium, you could go online, you know, I do it before every meeting, I go on and refresh myself, be here or not here, refresh myself on what was, you know, done the previous meeting.
Yeah, I don't
So
think I don't
it's
think
not
an
that
issue.
complicated
Just,
to, and correct me if it is, basically record it. I mean, we have audio, video, or in the school system, you know, people looking for community service all the time. You know, so I just think that's one option. Again, I think the town does a great job of having the information there. Not everyone knows how to find it or use it, but at least, you know, I mean, they educate themselves on how to get that information. It's an option for them that
Yeah,
I
I
like
think
to
the
pursue.
charter. If you
So it is
wanted-
possible to put something in the charter to that direction.
I think so, yes.
Okay.
That's not a hard.
All right.
Yeah, and I think we just want to be careful with that as well, because we're going to, I'm assuming, approve meetings where appropriate as needed. And I think it would be an unreasonable expectation to put it on like the planning and zoning, that the walk
Right.
around with the selfie stick and Facebook Live, a site walk.
Well, I mean, I know
So-
it needs a lot more
Yeah,
discussion,
yeah.
but I wanted to, before even going there, to make sure, but, I mean, you basically could nowadays outfit any room, meeting room with a camera. Most meeting rooms now
yeah.
have the cameras, you know?
Mhm.
And it's actually not that difficult with modern technology to record it, and it's, you know,
Yeah.
most meetings have some type of secretary or something, or moderator that could do so as well.
Mhm.
So, okay.
Agreed. Any other questions, concerns? All right.
Okay, did you vote on?
We have a credit, so I don't think we have to approve.
Yeah, there was no motion.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We don't
That means
make-
everyone.
I was about to, till Nick
Voted not to
said.
mandate
Yeah,
that.
yeah. But if anybody wants to make a motion to adjourn, we can entertain those.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? All right, we're adjourned.
We don't need to.
Nice work.
No,
See you
so like I
guys
said, I don't know why that's good.
July 10th.
July
Wow.
10th. Hey,
Yeah.
Patrick,
I'm sure it's double
you were asking
That
about.
happened last
Yes.
last
They just said they got
cycle
the
too.